Hello out there. Welcome back to the GM prep of the Abomination Vaults. I am DMSteve, and tonight, together, we are going to continue our series of taking a closer look at just what is inside the Abomination Vaults. This is sort of a series aimed at GMs who are maybe in a bit over their head or just want to talk it out with somebody else. And together, we're going to do some prep and make you feel more comfortable with the content of the Abomination Vault, and maybe allow you to focus your attention at the more important details, because there are a lot of details in an adventure path, even one that's only 3 books, such as this. Tonight, we're going to leave Otari, which we covered last week, and zoom the camera back across the Fogfin Swamp to the Gauntlet itself, going down to level 2, the Servants' Quarters. This will be the first scary, quote unquote, scary delve into the dungeon for your heroes. So let's go out of our way to set the tone and scare your party as much as possible before they've even encountered anything. That's kind of the goal here. Make them scared to go down and step foot. Quick reminder to anyone watching this live or watching this later on YouTube. If you're enjoying this content and it's helping you in your campaign, head on over to twitch.tv/DMSteve and give us a subscription. If you have Amazon Prime, you can connect your Amazon Prime to your Twitch account for Twitch Prime, and you get 1 free subscription a month you can donate towards us. No cost to you whatsoever. If it's sitting there unused, how about supporting our channel? We also accept regular subscriptions. It's just $5 a month, and that helps us to create some of this cool content and our campaigns that we've been doing. Okay, solicitation out of the way. Let's take a look at level 2 of the vaults, the Servants' Quarters. So, the first thing actually what we need to do before we sort of dive in here is before we dive into the meat of this level, we need to step aside for 1 second, because right here at the start of chapter 2, which is where level 2 is introduced, there's a side event here which involves the graveyard back in Otari and the lighthouse beaming its light, and kind of the first inciting incident of this campaign for the heroes. It's meant to happen just after your PCs are in level 2. The book sort of suggests letting the PCs see the beam attack from the lighthouse, but realistically that can only happen if... Sorry, I was distracted with something. That can really only happen if your PCs go to the Gauntlet at night and are fully rested, because you wouldn't want to spring this on them when they were, at low resources, because it is a pretty tough event. And a lot of heroes will avoid the lighthouse at night for good reason, because the lighthouse has scary stuff that happens at night. But so long as you telegraph 100% that the beam is coming from the direction of the Gauntlet, and you've kind of telegraphed this blue light in the lighthouse is connected to the glowing, eerie Gauntlet, your players are gonna understand that the beam is coming from the lighthouse, and they don't have to see it necessarily come from the source to make that connection. So in my case, I used it when they were like back in town, they were rested, they were hanging back at night, it sprung them into action. You can do the same, or you can do it after they come out of the vault. It's up to you. But in this sequence, the lighthouse shines its blue light on the graveyard, raising the dead from the ground. This is a moment, call to action for heroes, like I said, to get them to realize the lighthouse is actually a threat. This is the first time they realize the lighthouse itself is a threat. Unfortunately, the module doesn't provide maps for the graveyard. Luckily, there's no shortage of awesome graveyard maps out there that people have made and people like to use. But allow me to throw my own into the pile. So I'm going to share this one right here. This is the graveyard entrance. I've created this map, the base map, with the kind of based on the graveyard shape that we see in the Otari map. And the idea is that these dead people were under the ground, and they're just kind of clawing their way out of the ground to fight. So I'm going to link this in Twitch chat right now, and I will again put it later in my YouTube description. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you can look in the description. This contains two things. One, it contains the image files for both of the maps that I created myself. So that's this one, the graveyard entrance, and then two, the graveyard main, which is the second half of the fight as I set it up. And the second thing it includes is the import files for Foundry. So if you're using Foundry, you can import the JSON just like I did and point it at those images. If you put the images under your Foundry base directory under maps, the maps directory, map / the file names that I put in there, it'll pick it up automatically. That'll include the token placements, the effects layer that I have here. If you're using the FX master, it'll do this sort of foggy effect, and all the walls, the vision, lighting, everything set up, one click, easy to go. That's my gift to you. If you use it, let me know, because I enjoy seeing people get a use out of my things. So the book mentions really that you should have two, it's like one big fight. And that fight is 10 enemies in total. It's 5, it's 6, let me double, I think it's 4 zombies and 6, oh, it's 8 creatures. So it's 5 skeleton guards and 3 zombie shamblers in any connection. Important to note, because this changes the skeletons drastically. The skeletons are unarmed and fight only with their claws. So if you look at the skeleton stat block, normally it can use a scimitar and it can use a short bow, which are pretty powerful, right? They don't have those because they are not armed. They just crawled out of the graveyard. So you got to stick to only using the sort of claw attack for the guard. And then for the zombies, we're using the fist attack. And then it has the grab and the jaws. So the zombies are kind of cool in Pathfinder because they don't have a jaw bite attack. They have to like basically grab someone. And then once the fist attack does an attack, and if it hits, then it grabs. You spend an action to grab. And then once they're grabbed, you can use the jaw action to like bite on them, and it's an automatic hit. They just have to make a is that right? You have to make a jaws unarmed melee strike against. That's just an unarmed melee strike. Okay. But it does more damage. Interesting. Anyways, if your players get grabbed by a zombie, that's on them. Anyways, what I did is instead of doing one big skirmish with like 8 enemies, I just broke it up into 2 smaller maps. One when they first enter the graveyard, and a second one further in, because I imagine they come up the graveyard. It's good to point out this first map, the graveyard entrance, assumes the PCs come in from the north, the road that wraps around Otari. So let me just show Otari real quick. So this assumes this is the graveyard here. The graveyard road comes in, and then there's this big cliff that overlooks the city. So this entrance is emulating this section of the graveyard. So if your PCs come in from the north, this entrance makes sense. The other way to get into the graveyard is to come up from the south, which is this winding kind of road up to here. And this is kind of simulating close to where I have the second fight set. So you might need to change it up if your PCs go a different way. Let's go back and view this scene. Okay. So I've split up into 2. The first fight has 2 skeletons and 2 zombies. The PCs should be able to get the drop on them pretty easily. And kind of learn that just like really lean into the descriptions that this is fresh earth churned. These creatures are just now crawling out of the ground. And they're not, they're mindless, right? They're not being focused. They have no goal like placed in them. They're not being controlled. They're just being risen, and their only drive is to feed on the living. So if they sense your PCs, they should definitely be ready to fight. So do this for the entrance. And then the second half of the fight, I split into this thing, which they call the graveyard main, which is the other one. In this case, I put 3 zombies and 1 skeleton. I put this little mausoleum here because it kind of gives the PC some cover. It breaks up the monotony of the graveyard scenes. But if your VTT supports it, like your virtual tabletop, which I know Foundry does, I don't know about all the other ones, I really suggest you make this sort of light that emulates the Gauntlight beam. So you can have it off the map or hidden, turned off, however your VTT does it. And then as the fight starts progressing, you can drag it onto the playfield and just boom, turn on the beam, and just every round just draw a little closer to the PCs until eventually like it goes over them, because your PCs are going to see it coming and they're going to be like, oh god, what does this light do? It really scares them. The reality is the light doesn't do anything other than give them goosebumps and kind of make them feel like somebody's watching them, because remember, she's at the bottom of the lighthouse, she's looking in the lens, and has her sights on the PCs. This is the first time she's being exposed to them, which presumably will be a big thorn in their sides later. So really play up that like feeling of like something from the beyond watching you. And yeah, so the blue light is a cool sort of thing. Remember, once it gets to the end of the fight, the undeads go down, the blue light is supposed to settle like over the top of your PCs, or at least one of them, and then it blinks out of existence as Belcora teleports a Scalathrax from level 4 of the dungeon right into their midst. Because that's kind of what the Gauntlet does. And this is a test fire for Belcora finally getting this thing charged up enough that she can try it. And she's just testing things right now. This isn't her trying to really kill anyone. So play up that confusion. The Scalathrax appears from nothing right in the midst of the hero. The light blinks out. They should have no idea what's going on in that moment. And unless your PCs are arcane inclined, they might not even realize that it was summoned with arcane magic or anything like that. I would say play this one by ear. If your party is coming out of this undead fight fairly unscathed, which seems pretty likely, then feel free to drop it in a place that's going to cause the most panic amongst your PCs. Typically that's on the back line, because PCs will have a frontliners and backliners. If you drop this on the back line, it's going to cause some chaos. However, if they've already had some bad luck and they're feeling rough, feel free to just drop it right on the front line and let the big tanky person go toe-to-toe with this scary spider. Either way, the main goal of this fight is to sort of enhance the confusion and panic that makes the heroes want to go back to the lighthouse and take a closer look. Okay? The fallout of this event could be massive. The party is going to be seen by the locals as heroes for the first time, and depending on how roleplay heavy your game is, which our game is fairly roleplay heavy, there's a good chance to get the mayor involved and hire them for the quest to go make sure the lighthouse never glows again. There's other suggestions. Rin could be the one to sort of incite this. Vandy Bandersnatch could be the one to incite it. Even Yinyas Mara. You should find an NPC that's going to really resonate with your PCs and drive them to solving this, if they don't automatically have that hero's ambition to go do it, right? If they need a push, find the right NPC and give them the nudge. This should definitely mark a shift in the attitudes for the town. Before this, the folks are relatively indifferent to the PCs. They don't really mean anything to them. But after this, overall, the town should be fairly appreciative of how this went down. But even more than that, it's really important to put that fear in the town, who's not used to dangers like this on their midst. At night, the streets should be empty. Like, describe this at the beginning of the module, describe how people are out at night and there's, taverns and commerce. And at night, now, everyone's locking up, everyone's going home. Streets should be empty. Street merchants should be packing up and moving on to the next town. Taverns should be more sparse. There should be a sense of relative unease just hanging over the town after this event. Allow your heroes to be that singular ray of light at the center of the town that brings hope, and reinforce that idea that the locals are ill-equipped to handle things on this scale. And that's why your heroes, your PCs, have a chance here to make a name for themselves as, heroes in Otari. Which should be why their characters are in this event, because hopefully they make characters that want to be involved in the adventure. Awesome. So again, I've posted the link in Twitch chat. It'll be in the link of YouTube if you want to grab these maps and import them into your game, which should be good. All right. With that handled and out of the way, let's move our focus back to the servants' quarters proper. So I'll zoom out a bit so you can see this is the layout of the servants' quarters in general. It is the second level of the dungeon, or the first level underneath the dungeon. Most people don't even know that this is here because it's fairly hidden. Even the Rose Guard back at the day never really truly explored it and found this. Let's take a quick look at the summary. Okay, so remember at the start of each chapter, they go ahead and give the summary, a synopsis, and they give us some cues that we can lean into to sort of set the tone for this level. So, Chapter 2 synopsis. The Abomination Vault's second level, its highest underground level, harbors several old traps and fiercely independent denizens who hunt on the surface. It also contains a small group of Morlocks pushed up from below. Before the heroes get too far into exploring this level, though, Bakor activates the Gauntlight in a devastating test as she refines the artifact's power, which we covered with the graveyard. Okay? Environmental cues. What sort of tone are we setting for this level of the dungeon? Broken, low-quality furniture and tools. Remember, these have been here for hundreds of years, just rotting away. Cobwebs, right? Especially, maybe not so much in the Morlock areas, but in some of these, especially in the dining room and the meeting rooms and sort of the rooms where even the Morlocks don't know about, those ones should definitely be covered in cobwebs and sort of years of neglect. Not to mention there is a spider type creature here that kind of reinforces the web motif. Distant banging noises. The Morlocks are repair people and they're constantly like fixing things off in the distance. So if you need to put a little bit of fear or unease in your PC's ears, just mention the soft banging of hammers in the distance echoing through the empty hallways. Smells of mold. There's definitely like damp mold growing here, and there's some moldy sort of hazards for them to deal with. And unpleasant dampness. We are in a level that is mostly flooded, right? It's flooded with water. The moisture level's got to be pretty high here. There's no sunlight to dry it out. So damp, stale, moldy smell here in the servants' quarters. Okay, that makes sense. So let's talk about 3 very key factions and or people and areas of this level that is going to be really important for you to know to run this properly. And remember, you have no way to know which way your PCs will come down. The main way that's, I guess, assumed the most basic way to come down is probably through this staircase here, which this leads from the hidden room in Bakor's office up here, straight down here. And then from there, there's secret doors that sort of open here and here that the Morlocks never even found in all their time settling here. And so then if they come through that way, their first encounter is going to be with the Morlocks. If they come through the little tunnel under the pier, that's going to lead them into Freznelkesh's lair, the River Drake. And so their first encounter is likely to be with the River Drake. And the other way down is this rock tunnel that they could spend weeks to clear out, which most likely is not going to be the way. But if it is the way they come, again, the Morlocks are going to be first contact. And there is this sort of offshoot, which we'll get to in a minute, which is like Volluk's sort of workshop. But this is, even though it's on the servant's lair, it's completely disconnected from the rest of the level 2 quarters. So if they go down there, they won't even basically see the Morlocks until they go down to level 3 and come back up or find another secret way down. So I would say the most important faction, based on all these ways they can go, is the Morlocks. There's no way to get through this lair level realistically without having some contact with them. So what are they? So let's bring up, let's bring up some handouts so you can see, what is this? Journal entries. Some pictures of more. There's a Morlock cultist, a scavenger, an engineer. You can see they're goblin. They got very similar goblin-like features. They're considered humanoids. They got the big oversized eyes. Remember Boss Strong up above, he referred to these people as the mushroom-eyed people, which you can see they do have oversized eyes for their bodies. And they have different like these guys, the scavengers, are smaller in stature. They're actually small creatures as compared to the medium creatures that most of them are. So the dominant faction is the Morlocks. They're a group of subterranean humanoids that love food, though ultimately they are pretty low on the food chain when it comes down to it. They are very good at creating, or more specifically, repairing and tinkering. Because their like drive for tinkering is unparalleled. This obsession with modifying things is reflected in this group, especially because you'll see there's 2 instances of Morlocks trying their hardest to repair and improve ballista that have fallen into disrepair. And this is them never being satisfied with good enough. They're just always trying to fix things and find things that are broken and make them work. And the funny thing I thought was, if you look at like the Morlock, let's see, the engineers, here we go. One of their abilities, they have this thing, it's called a projectile launcher, which just shoots random junk at the PCs. But if you look at the improvised projectile, they can, for one action, they can create some kind of random projectile in whatever damage type they need. They need piercing and they need bludgeoning. They can just do it. If there's a campfire, they could deal fire damage. It's just pretty cool that they have this ingenuity. And they can basically try to repair things, and their sort of weapon is so shoddy that they're the only ones that can keep it running. If the PCs get their hands on it without like an amazing crafting check, it's not going to work very well. Yeah. So this specific cult is known as the Ghost Queen Morlocks. And their backstory is they used to live far, far down below. Remember, 10 levels of dungeon. They were pretty much way down deep, living in the caves nearby the Abomination Vaults. But they were forced upwards to the surface because no one likes them. They're basically fodder. Every other faction just wants to eat them. You know, nobody respects them. So they were forced up higher and higher until they could find a place where they kind of fit. And so they arrived here months ago, where they basically found the Mitflits from the first level who lived here and got into a skirmish, took over the land, the territory, and pushed the Mitflits up to the surface, claimed this territory as their own, and now they're trying to get back in the good graces of the Ghost Queen, who is, of course, spoilers, Belcora herself. She's a ghost, she's risen, they're worshipping her now from in the Gauntlet itself. The thing to remember, Belcora couldn't care less about these guys, probably never even looked at them. They're insignificant to her, but to them, she is everything. And even them talking bad about Belcora or using her name and not referring to her as the Ghost Queen and not showing her respect is going to be enough to cause them to sort of go into a frenzy. There is a king. His name is Gralgust. This is sort of his image. He's this cultist guy, right? I think his stat block is just literally a... Let me see. They just call him... He's just a male Morlock cultist, so he's you know, got a different stat block than the rest. But he's built a throne here. And one of the most interesting tidbits about him is that he has a pet, which is a Grothlet. So if I show this here and I do this sheet, you can see. Let me see. Is there a way to show this bigger? I don't know. You can see it's like this weird blobby flesh in a vaguely distinct humanoid shape that moans pitifully and just gets in people's minds. Okay. Grothlets are a result of what is known as flesh warping, and specifically when you flesh warp human. This specific Grothlet was rescued from a cage down below. It's sort of intended to foreshadow some stuff, because on the 6th level of the dungeon, which takes place in the second adventure book, which is Hands of the Devil, there's a person dedicated to the art of flesh warping named Jafaki. And this is kind of hinting at horrors to come which is, literally changing the warping the flesh of other creatures and shaping them into new things. And that guy has just gotten so insane and is constantly doing sort of experiments on people. So this is supposed to be one of his experiments that was rescued and now is loyal to these Morlocks. And specifically Gralgus, the king, is, it's like think of it like a pet dog that happens to be a blobby, vaguely humanoid shape. Awesome, right? Okay. One real important thing here too is the Morlocks. They start off more indifferent to your players and not hostile, which means they're not necessarily going to attack on sight, right? If I take a look at what it says here, it says the Ghost Queen Morlock's lair here. The first time they enter into this area, 4 Morlock scavengers are present, fiddling with a partially ruined ballista that they dragged in pieces from Area B21 up above. The Morlocks snarl and hiss if they're interrupted, fighting until only one of them is left standing, and then that Morlock flees. But it doesn't say they attack on sight. There's no need for them to get vicious and hostile. So if your PCs speak Undercommon and they can converse with them, this might be a chance to sort of relay some information, pass through this without interfering. It can go down in a fight, but it doesn't necessarily have to. Gralgus has his own agenda specifically, which is to try to kind of trick the PCs into working for him. It's in a whole side quest they can do. He wants them to kill the River Drake, and then if they return with the head as proof, he gives them titles, and then he gives them a tour, and he tries to send them here to the shadow creature to see if they can survive it. And at the very end, if they really have the trust of him, then they'll send him down to the library, which is level 3, to drive out the ghouls so they can go back to lair in the level down below, and the Morlocks don't have to stay here in what they don't like this area, right? They like being down below. Gralgus can teach him about the Abomination Vault, and you never say Balcora in his presence, because if you do, again, he goes into a rage. The other thing, lots of traps. So if you have PCs that are trap finders, this sort of hallway of spike traps is fun because the Morlock will run through it without triggering it. And then the PCs are like, ow, ow, dart trap, spike launcher, sorry. But overall, that's the faction. It's very straightforward. Just remember, they don't have to be, they have no qualms with fighting, but they're not necessarily aggressively hostile to start. Okay. And remember, the Grothlet is down here at this sort of pool of water. And then if combat breaks out up here, he comes running and joins the fight a few rounds in. And, Gralgus is, this is considered a severe 2 fight on its own because he has a Morlock with him, who in my game is up here hiding. So that's, it could be tough. And then down here, the Grothlet's a low creature because he's only creature 3. But if you take a severe 2 and combine another creature on top of it, that's going to make it pretty challenging. So, give your PCs warning that something's coming from that way, so you don't TPK them. All right. Speaking of TPKs, let's talk about Freznelkesh. So Freznelkesh is here. Freznelkesh is a river drake that, depending on how your party handled Boss Krong up below, might be something your players already fear. And if you want to lean into this, starting in your campaign, give signs of this drake flying through the sky, going not attacking your players, but flying over the keep when they're on their way, or flying over their heads and they see the drake as they pass the swamp, or flying over the swamp while they are en route, or it returns this dragon-like creature and just disappears and they have no idea where it is, right? You can play this up as much as you want or as little as you want, right? Boss Krong calls it a swamp dragon, and a lot of players, in a sort of metagamey sense here, might be scared of the presence of an actual dragon, right? Because dragons are pretty dangerous. In reality, it's just a drake, which is, to be fair, a cousin to a dragon. But it's something the party, in reality, can easily overcome. It's, a level 3 creature. So at level 2, it's definitely something they can handle. His lair, or her lair, sorry, Freznelkesh's lair, is underneath the docks in this swampy cavern. Fighting the river drake in the docks, or in the in its own lair, can be challenging because PCs that are in water without a swim speed do not have a good time. So make sure you brush up for the rules on aquatic combat. Specifically, if you're in the water, you're flat-footed. You also have resistance 5 to fire and acid effects. And the dragon does have an acid spitting breath. So that if your players use recall knowledge, maybe you can say, hey, if you're in the water, you're going to be resistant to the breath weapon because it does acid damage, right? With Speed Surge, Freznelkesh can close distance fast. So like if you look at the stat block, Freznelkesh has Speed Surge. One action allows them to move up to twice its speed 3 times per day. So with a flight speed 50, if it's in this cavern, it probably can't use it. It could probably use its 30-foot swim speed. On land, it only has a 20-foot speed. I don't think the hallways are probably big enough to realistically fly, but getting 50-foot dash 30 swim 20 running is enough to really, even if the pieces you treat right, you can really scare them. Following it up with a Draconic Frenzy, which allows it to do 1 Fang Strike and 2 Tail Strikes for 2 actions. Which, remember, that uses the multiple attack penalty. You don't get to ignore that just because it does 3 attacks. It's not like 5e where multi-attack just happens. You would still take the first attack at no penalty, and then the next one at -5, and the next one at -10. But still, it is, not bad. And then the Mucus, once every 4 turns, it can spit a ball that explodes, 10-foot burst, and it's just a reflex save to avoid it. Not too hard to hit. It only has 19 AC and 45 hit points. At level 2, your PCs it'd be a good fight. What do they consider? They consider it a low 2. I'm not sure. I think if you factor in the lair and then the situation, it can be in like the tight quarters, it can probably be a little harder than it would normally suggest. But definitely a cool moment. So again, defeating this is pretty cool milestone for the players, even if it's not a full even if it's not a full dragon, it's still a dragon-like creature, right? If you have any druids in your party who might have a hard time dealing with magic, like not finding any sort of non-metal magical armor, because most of the armor is all like metal and they can't wear it, right? This is a good chance to sort of let the hide be harvested from the creature and craft it into something with acid resistance, right? Just like the creature has. This will help keep them up with the armor that some of the other players might not have, and actually make this a memorable kill because they'll be carrying that armor with them through the rest of the campaign, and they'll always remember back to the River Drake Freznelkesh that they fought, and it's just kind of a cool moment, right? I'm suggesting having it craft into a hide armor or a scale armor, depending on what you want. It is technically scaly, but it's not as good as dragon scales. I think it's described as being like sort of it says they have the appearance reminiscent of riverfish. They have scales, so it could be scale mail, but it's not quite hard, so it's up to you, right? Whatever you think works best for your players. And I would suggest maybe giving it acid resistance 5 as a rune, something to signify its innate magical abilities. Now the only problem with this, right, baseline, the rune for 5 acid resistance that can be moved around and stuff is a level 8 item that actually costs 420 gold. And this is like level 2 kill, right? Level 3 creature. That's pretty expensive. Pretty good for that. So, I'm thinking if you really worried about that, maybe give it a special armor with like 3 acid resistance or something like that. I plan to go with acid resistance 5 built into the armor and not as a rune, so it can't be moved, but it's part of the hide. If something goes wrong and it completely breaks the game in some crazy way, I'll report back and let you all know. It might be a bit on the powerful side. I don't think it's going to be game breaking. I'm not sure there's a lot of acid damage that having resistance 5 is going to really be a big deal. But go nuts here, right? Claws, teeth, hide, it can all be turned into some cool stuff. All right, so that's it for Freznelkesh. Don't forget, PCs should know, if you're an adventurer, dragons have treasure. So the treasure here is actually pretty hard to find. I think it takes a DC. What does it say? It says the DC 16. That's actually not that hard to find. My PC's just rolled really bad. And then it's underwater, so they've got to be swimming underwater, find it, pull it up, unearth the treasure chest, and it's full of some goodies. So, you know, it's kind of like if this is your player's first time playing an RPG or something like that, this is sort of that first taste of what killing a dragon and finding the treasure is all about. All right, moving on up here. This is the last major faction to really cover in this level, which is Borbo / Volluk and Volluk's workshop. So aside from the main servants' quarters, which we saw, here there's a segregated section that's dedicated specifically to Volluk's offices. Volluk, Azrene, if you recall from the campaign overview video we did, or maybe you never watched the video, he is a drow lens maker. His clan lives really deep below. There's a whole society of drow that live down near the bottom of the Abomination Vaults. And he managed to impress Belcora enough to rise above his station and come up here, and she took him under his wing and entrusted him to make the 4 fulcrum lenses, which the lighthouse needs to fire at full power. And he did so with honor. So if you remember, these 4 lenses are going to be super key in defeating Belcora at the end of the campaign. His whole workshop is dedicated to creating these lenses. So he was a very powerful right-hand man to Belcora in her sort of conquest to defeat Absalom. Now, don't mistake that for her liking him or caring about him in any way. Just know that he was absolutely dedicated to her 100% unquestionably. He has an assistant by the name of Borbo, a goblin. As dedicated as Volluk was to Belcora, Borbo was to Volluk, and in that same sort of power play, Volluk didn't really care for him, right? It's just a means to an end for him. When the Rose Guard showed up to fight Belcora 500 years ago, Volluk and Borbo hid in these specific areas, hiding, cowardly as they were. After the fighting ended, Volluk kind of went to the surface and found Belcora dead in the lighthouse, which pushed him over the edge, and he was distraught. He never forgave himself for hiding and not intervening, not helping her in some way. And in his rage, he returns to his workshop, destroyed everything, and kind of started losing it mentally. Because at that point, he turned his attention and research from kind of creating lenses to creating like soul manipulation magic. Not quite flesh warping, but actually transferring the soul from some object into another. As at this point, they kind of betrayed Borbo. He created Borbo a doll, and he was going to put Borbo into this goblin doll. And the doll artwork looks like this, right? It's a really fun little doll that they could find in his workshop. And he told him that Borbo could live forever in this doll. And Borbo agreed. And then Volluk took that soul of Borbo and infused it into a soul gem. And used that soul gem to power a soulbound doll. Not the goblin doll here that he was kind of promised, but instead Mr. Beak. Now, if you remember, Mr. Beak was the creature at level 1 the creatures can fight in the lens room, who was looking for this master. And if you defeat it, you can find that soul gem in the back of that doll. And you can actually use that soul gem and put it into this doll, which has a sort of a D-cell battery slot right in the back. And if you do that, Borbo comes back to life. That's a whole sort of side quest you can do, which is really cool. Anyways, this sort of, section here serves to really show Volluk's fall from grace and his interest in cramming souls of things into other creatures. Yeah, even a journal which kind of details his knowledge of putting souls into not just other creatures or constructs, but swarms of creatures, specifically like rats and worms. This is a big foreshadow for the boss fight that comes. He is like a big Oogie Boogie style boss. So let's see. Let's show you Volluk again. Volluk is this man. He's taken his soul from a drow form and he's put it into the like a writhing mass of worms. So he doesn't have a face. It kind of vaguely has his face. His hands are just constantly bugs falling out, splitting at the seams. It's just a pile of clothes inhabited by his soul, split amongst all these creatures. Very, very Oogie Boogie at the end of Nightmare Before Christmas, right? If the PCs do go through the effort of reuniting the gem to the doll and, are able to sort of soothe Borbo through like threats or compassion, either one works, he can become a really important ally here. His knowledge of the keep is outdated, but it could be proved to be enough to actually guide the PCs through the library level at the very least. He can also provide a lot of the key insight about Volluk and what Volluk was doing and the insight into these lenses that even exist, because at this point, the PCs won't even know, right? So if they go through the effort of trying to learn more of the backstory, what was going on, he can kind of foreshadow, well, Master made the lenses, and your PCs will then have that in the back of their mind, so when the lenses come back around at the end of the campaign, it won't just feel like it came out of nowhere. It really brings it full circle. So here's a chance for you as a GM to kind of lean into that. If there's one thing you want to do in this section, you're not sure what to do, that's what I kind of lean into, and I would suggest doing something similar. The other thing that's key here is he knows Volluk's weakness, which is Volluk's vanity. It's referred to a lot of places. Even Belcora calls him vain in her diaries. But this vanity can be his weakness, right? So if the PCs can find a picture of Volluk, and there's only one living because the one that was in the hallway, Volluk destroyed in anger. If you can find Volluk's painting and show it to him and threaten it, you can actually mess with his mind because he's so vain he doesn't want his image being destroyed by anyone like that, right? It'll like literally stun him to give him like less actions per turn. And the only way that it's kind of shown that you could even learn this really kind of important tidbit is by Borbo telling them. I guess theoretically they could piece it together on their own, but it seems pretty far-fetched. But Borbo can be the conduit to help your PCs get that edge on the boss if they come to the workshop, if they reunite the gem, and if they think to ask, and if Borbo likes them enough to answer. So if all of those kind of stars align, it should provide for a really cool moment that I'm looking forward to seeing play out, because my players did learn this weakness, and right now they're looking for, anything they could find related to the lenses or to the picture. Big thing here too as well, it's not explicitly called out. It's mentioned here that he has a relationship with a book lady down below, right? In this case, it's actually referring to a drow ghost on level 3. Her name is Chandrius Invisar. When you read that entry on level 3, it becomes very clear that she's the book lady that Volluk was involved with. But here on level 2, it doesn't actually call it out. So, really, if they want to go search this book lady, that's where Borbo should ultimately be able to kind of lead them towards. Borbo being trapped in a gem for 500 years, he might not have the most reliable memory, and he probably wouldn't have been treated nicely by either one of them. So how much he knows is up to you. But if they're interested in this, that's down here on level 3. That's down here in this room. But we'll get to that when we take a look closer at level 3. For now, we're squarely focused on level 2. But the interesting thing about the way this keep is laid out, since this is all completely segregated, if your PCs come down here and they don't even know about this whole section, all they find at level 2 is this little island workshop, and then they descend to level 3 straight to the library, right? They miss so much of this content. There's so much content here on level 3 that, if they don't see it all, it's fine. It's not about exploring every corner of the dungeon, but there's, everywhere they go, there's lots of cool story beats and cool treasure that could help them. So 3 important story beats on this level I wanted to call out and focus on. the prisoner side quests. So either your PCs know because they're tied with the Yasmara somehow, or they find the boat up on the first level that indicates there are some people missing. They can go back to town and ask, and they're told, yeah, 4 of our prisoners went missing. The story is they came down here looking for treasure. They went in when the Drake was gone. They encountered the Morlocks. They tried to retreat. They got trapped between the Drake and the Morlocks, and they lost the fight. And now they're being held prisoner here in this prison section. So your PCs can come in here, either fight the Morlocks and sneak them out, or, finesse their way with some sweet persuasion rolls and trick the Morlocks into releasing them, depending how your story goes. But this prisoner side story is a pretty cool way to tie it back to Otari, which we talked about last week. Okay. Also, the whole story with like Otari's ghost and Zazlarin, the devil. So there is a devil here, tucked away in the corner, completely out of place, to the PC's perspective at least. The devil foreshadows some of the infernal involvement that Bokora had. She made some deals with her soul with the infernal capacity, which will come into play in the hands of the devil, which we talked about in the overview video. But this is the first sign that there might be some infernal ties here. This is just like a little fly creature, and it actually calls out that like Belcora forces him to clean this level. He's like a janitor, and she even forces him to clean it with his tongue. Like a certain number of hours a day, he has to clean it with his tongue. So he has to clean for 6 hours a day, and 3 hours of it is with his tongue, the walls and the floors. That's pretty messed up. But the real interesting thing about him is he has this ability, right? They're like observers. So the Infernal Eye records everything he watches his whole life, and he can give that memory to someone else and erases it from his own. So he saw Otari Elvashti fall down here after the Rose Guard defeated Bokora, and he was the last person to see him alive, and he can tell the PCs exactly what he saw. Now, if the PCs go this way, specifically to this bathroom, where he shows Otari running to and closing the door, and I foreshadowed this personally by putting a green glowing dot that kind of glows under the doorway to draw them here. But this is the haunted washroom, and this is the first of many haunts on the first. So there's one on level 2, one on level 3, and one on level 4 that kind of guides the heroes to Otari's body. Because remember, they need to find Otari's body on level 4 in order to know how to proceed to levels 5 and below, because he tells them what they need to know, all the backstory stuff. So the way it works is, this is the first one. When they come into this room, this green light writes on the wall and says, "I am Otari," in like spooky letters. And then it slips out of the room and it follows Otari's footsteps, the same thing he did in life, egging the PCs on to follow his footsteps as well. So in this case, the light comes this way. Let's see. It goes B31 to B20. So, it comes this way, down this hallway, into this room where there's a skeletal minotaur, what is it? It's a skeletal giant in here. Otari killed it, so when the ghost comes in here, it dances around this room a bit as Otari battled it. Interestingly, if the PCs are following the light and they come in this way, these bones form like around them, and as long as they leave the room real quick, they're fine. But if they don't, the skeletal giant reforms, and then they have to fight the giant. The ghost doesn't stop for them at all. The ghost dances around just like it was having combat, and then, eventually makes its way here, and then slips through this secret door and goes down, because that's the path Otari took when he died. So this does a couple of things. One, it draws the PCs to follow in Otari's footsteps and find out what is this ghostly spirit anyways. 2, it shows them some secrets and reveals a secret door to them that they probably would have missed or potentially missed on their own. And 3, it sets up further sightings of this ghostly spirit to lead them to his body down below. So definitely be ready for that. Know his path in your head, like what happened to Otari, where he went, what he did on each level, and then be ready to kind of let your PCs follow that down towards his body. So we have a comment in chat from Dalvin who says, Zazlarin might be a good opportunity to foreshadow the fact that Belcora summoned and contracted other devils as well, and allow the PCs to be prepared to fight them in the deeper levels. Yes, absolutely, right? This is the first idea or taste or any indication at all that the heroes themselves will have that devils and fiends might be involved at all, right? Because if they talk with him, he can tell people that he's on, he's in a contract with Belcora, forced into her servitude. And, there are certain, it's metagamey, but there are certain things like cold iron, steel, what other things are here? Let's see, his weaknesses are good damage, and he has resistance to silver. No, he has resistance to anything except for silver. So silvered weapons and stuff like that are good against devils. So if the PC, you're right here, because if the PCs have now some indication that maybe there's some devilish activity coming, they're more likely to silver their weapons and take the precautions they could need, right? On the other hand, Zazlarin is kind of tucked in a corner and won't necessarily be stumbled upon unless your PCs are checking the levels very thoroughly. But because his backstory involves him being forced to clean the dungeons, it'd be a fun sort of encounter, right? The PCs are coming down this long hallway cautiously, and then there's like a buzzing noise up ahead. And then what do they see? A little devil creature. What are they called? They're called are they Z-Bubs? Is that what they're called? Yeah, Z-Bubs. And all of a sudden this devil's like licking the walls. It would be pretty eerie. So if you want that comic relief, use the licking the walls. If you want him to be scared, obviously don't have him like licking the walls. But it's very important here to use this to foreshadow the devils down below, just like we foreshadowed the flesh warping down below, and we foreshadowed Otari's body down below. There's a lot of foreshadowing. It's really well designed, I gotta say, because it feels on the surface like a bunch of random stuff, but it really does kind of tie into the story of the Gauntlight ruins down below, and everything is pretty well foreshadowed. And I gotta give props to the writers for this. And then the last thing, I kind of already covered it, is Borbo. Make sure you have a good idea with Borbo, because he could latch on and be a really important NPC. He'll at least be a memorable one. My PCs have brought him to life and tied him to their belt, kind of like the head in God of War, the new God of War on PS5, where or PS4, sorry, where it's just a head that can talk and follow you around. So now Borbo is sort of their guide, but he can't move. He just can like see and react to what's around him. And there's a very good chance your PCs will probably try to do something similar. So, Borbo could be one of those NPCs that your players will fondly talk about for, years to come. Or he could just be something they don't care. At the very least, they can smash the gem, set a soul free, and get a reward from Pharasma, who gives them sort of I think it was said they get to one. Let me just read what it says. It says, oh yeah, Borbo pitifully has to be released. If the hero smashes soul focus gem, Borbo's soul is freed. For this act of compassion, Pharasma grants the hero who destroyed the gem a favor in the form of a momentary prophetic glimpse of their fate. This allows the hero to gain a +2 status bonus to any check, which they can apply after they determine the check result. And you have 1 month to use it. So 1 +2 roll in the key moment, which could be the difference between a crit and surviving or missing and dying. Yeah. So the 3 story beats you have to know, again, to recap: the prisoner side quest, Otari's ghost and Zazlarin sort of fiendish indications in the dungeon, and everything that Borbo has to talk about Volluk, and know where it goes below. And there's other fun stuff. I don't want to say that's all the important stuff, right? We get a shot at the lighthouse itself, right? This is they know the lighthouse exists above. This room here with the light is sort of the first indication that there's more to the lighthouse than what's on the surface, right? This blue light is going from the ceiling to the floor. It's warping the flesh. It's purely magical. This is sort of what I like to say is like it's sort of a waypoint or a landmark. Every level they come down, they can look for the lighthouse on that level to get their bearings. Like, okay, we know where we are because we're right by the lighthouse. let's set out and find what there is. In this case, this purple worm literally has a Duragar inside of it clutching a silver Warhammer that didn't help him survive. But if they dig into the body, they could find, you know, the +1 Warhammer. Secondly, the shadow creature. It was the Major Domo that it's just a shadow creature, but it was one of Belcora's chosen, the only one that Belcora ever had buried here. And it's just a creepy shadow creature that ties into the story fully, sure, but it's not as important to the story. And the same thing up here with this a web lurker, Mimnivix. It's he just has this little spider web in the lair. He's got 2 little spiders that fight with him. He's got some treasure webbed underneath. Does it affect the story? Does it important to things? I don't think so, but it's a really cool, fun little event with some little treasure if they go this way. The only cool thing here is all these trapped hallways where you get a glimpse at how Belcora planned all the way she envisioned destroying Absalom, burning it, tsunami, earthquake, monster, and finally the undead uprising, which you know, is the one she settled on, which is sort of the Gauntlet. Mike EM09, this is great. Thanks for doing these teas. Very helpful. I hope so. I'm glad you're enjoying it. I hope you get something out of this. I know I always feel good having sort of resources to check on because, you know, I'm not doing all the work for you guys. I'm just helping highlight some stuff that I think is important that'll make you feel more comfortable going in. Oh, Dalvin saying, I suggest you should post about my jamming streams videos on the Paizo Abomination Vaults forum. You give insights that are great to take the adventure to a whole new level. It's true. I've read them. I've definitely read that forums when I was starting this. I didn't find them super highly populated. There were couple people posting some stuff, but it wasn't highly trafficked. But you're probably right. I should probably go there and post a link to these YouTube channels. I might wait like another week or two so I have a little bit more substance to my video so I can give a longer playlist so that way people can sink their teeth into it. But it is funny how many people I've run into. Like, I hang out in the Foundry Pathfinder, the Foundry VTT Pathfinder channel, and occasionally I'll see people like in there like talking about running event, the Abomination Vault. So I'm like, hey, you should check out this YouTube video series. Not to self promote too much, but like I'm making content that should help people like you. And people are always like, oh yeah, I've already watched those. You're awesome, thanks. And it's cool that like there's this tight knit community of people finding content online, and somehow people are finding my stuff. I don't know. Yeah, hold off on updating Foundry. They're not compatible with 8.6 yet. Yes, I am still running 7.10. I've been keeping a close eye on that. I don't know how many of the modules I use that are super important have been updated. I know that there's still some bugs on Pathfinder 2e. I'm probably going to give it like another week or two before I upgrade. But it works good enough so that if you have upgraded, it's good enough to run a game. I know that much, but I haven't found like a real need to really rush in and update yet. Although I know I will within the coming week because there's a lot of new features I want to get my teeth into. Plus, I have a personal goal or aspirations. I really want to implement auras and aura systems into Pathfinder 2e, the subsystem. So I've been working on some programming for that to make the auras a reality. I did a little bit of tweaking on, let's see. So there is an aura system here. I've done some tweaking to it to make it work better. I changed it so the aura is always under all the tokens instead of above. I haven't committed it to the repository because what I really want to do is instead of relying on this third-party aura module, I'm actually started putting some code together to make it work natively in Pathfinder 2e. It's just a lot of work, and I don't know the ins and outs of the API that well, so I feel like I'm underqualified to do this, if it makes sense. But no one else has done it yet, so I might bite that bullet and make it work for 8.6. So we'll see. Well, anyways, that really does it for tonight. We covered all of level 2. There's nothing major besides that. I mean, you kind of can get a sense for where your PCs are going and what where you expect them to come up or down the levels, and that could kind of where you should put your focus. I guess one other concept I can go back and just share really quick, because this is the first glimpse they get of it, is the portal chamber. I guess you can get a first glimpse on the first level, but this is where you kind of learn that there's a portal system, and you can actually do like the fast travel, like Diablo style waypoints to go from level to level across the dungeons. When they find it, they don't have the power to activate it yet. You can get the ritual from the level 3 and then activate all the portals along the way, which is cool. To start though, like there's two different kinds of portals. There's one that's like the freeway system that allows you to go from any point to any level, and there's other ones that are just 2 link points in space that can teleport you from one level to the nether, like, you know, like a waypoint system. They're both, you know, the same ritual can awaken them, but again, this is where they would get a glimpse of that sort of system. Again, I don't think it's super important. It really depends on how hard you want to make going up and down the levels, right? Because if you make it really hard, they're going to want to use the waypoint. And if you're not using wandering monsters and stuff like that, you're just fast forwarding through the content. It's not gonna be a big deal. All right, that covers that. You know, that we've covered everything we need to cover for level 2. I hope, you know, Mike and Dalvin, thanks for hanging out with me tonight and interacting with me. Anyone else that's watching that's just, you know, is just watching and not talking, I still appreciate you. Again, another callback to the solicitation at the beginning of the video. If you guys are enjoying this content, give us a subscription. We have the ability to take subscriptions now. If you have Twitch Prime connected to your Amazon Prime, you can give your free subscription to us. It gives us a little bit of incentive to keep making these videos. You know, not required. I'm going to make this to help you guys out regardless. But if you're getting a little bit out of it, give us some love back. Otherwise, we'll be back next Sunday to cover level 3, the library, which is the level that my players just got to this week. So I've been looking at it really close this week and learning the ins and outs. So that means next week we will focus on everything you need to know in the library. Yep, that's going to do it for me this week. Remember, GM prep videos are running at 8 o'clock Pacific, Sunday nights. And I will be back so tonight's the 6th. I will be back on the 13th for the library level. And then the playthrough, if you enjoy watching the GM prep, but you want to see what our group looks like playing through, we're doing a very normal playthrough Wednesday nights from 7 to 10. And again, we are 5th edition veterans that are learning the system. So if you're new to Pathfinder, that's a really cool series to check out. And again, Wednesdays at 7 Pacific for that stream. Otherwise, I'll see you guys. Make sure to follow me here on twitch.tv/DMSteve. Also, if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you. Subscribe on YouTube. It's Steve the DM. No, actually, I'm sorry. I'm DMSteve on YouTube, but on Twitter, I'm at Steve the DM. You can follow me there and ask me questions and I'll shoot it out. Again, check the link in this video on YouTube for the map pack for the graveyard scenes. So that way you don't have to create your own maps. And I'll see you guys next time on the Abomination Vaults GM prep. Good night, guys. Bye, Dalvin. Bye, Mike.